Some of you may have read the headline this week that something that happened at Saddleback Church regarding another female pastor at the church. The Southern Baptist Convention kicked them out of their own church because they put women in the pulpit. They released a statement, which I really appreciate. On the one side, the statement kind of went that they believe pretty much what I believe. I have a good understanding, and I don't believe I'm alone about my understanding on what the day of Pentecost in the New Testament represented, who was in the upper room, men and women. But I only will say this just as a sidebar. If any of you read the statement, I have only one issue with that. And their statement was basically that they hold no malice, and basically it's all good. My opinion is anybody who questions the sovereignty of God, you have a problem. And it's not for us to apologize for the lack of someone's understanding of who God is. If you understand who God is, you don't get to call the shots, and you don't get to decide. If God taps whatever the gender is, I've said to you before, if a monkey is preaching the gospel and sound doctrine, you better listen. So as this has come out, I'm pretty confident. Listen, we are independent and non-denominational, but I'm sure that other people will succumb to this and will do the same thing. Now, there'll be people that say, well, Jesus said, turn the other cheek. Not towards the insult of God's sovereignty. Now, if I can't say who's chosen or who's called or who's not, that's not my business. I'm not God. But what I can say is I find it highly offensive when people who will take one verse of Scripture, just one singular verse of Scripture, and that is the letter from Paul to Timothy, which was an instruction to Timothy as a pastor, not to a church, and take that one text and make that doctrine. I've said to you before, in order for something to be doctrine and sound doctrine, it must be repeated multiple times. In fact, if you take the whole Old and New, you're going to find repetition that makes for sound doctrine. But when you take something, as I call it, one singular text and make it a one-hit wonder and use it and weaponize it against people and completely ignore the rest of the Testament, I have issue with that. So I know that I have a lot of friends of mine and a lot of listeners who are Baptist. That ought to tell you that not everyone has the same ideology or theology. But as for me, of course, I'm not in their shoes, but I would just say the only fault that I say on their part is being slightly apologetic for something that someone who's truly called should never apologize for, period.
This house, magnify the Lord, lift up holy hands, our hearts in one accord, worship and bow down before